Picture a throne room in the Vatican. January 897 AD. The air is thick with incense, but it can't mask the other smell, the smell of death. On a marble throne sits a figure dressed in full papal robes, gold and white silk draped over decomposing flesh. Pope Formosus has been dead for 9 months, but today he's on trial. This is the Cadaver Synod, the most grotesque trial in church history, a moment so disturbing that it would fracture the Catholic Church and haunt Rome for generations. What you're about to hear isn't fiction. This actually happened, and it's only the beginning of one of the darkest periods the Vatican has ever seen. To understand why a corpse ended up in a courtroom, you need to understand the man who put it there, Pope Stephen VI. He wasn't just angry at his predecessor, he was consumed by rage. Stephen VI became pope in May 896, about 8 months after Formosus died. But Stephen had a problem. His entire claim to the papacy was built on shaky ground, and he knew it. Formosus had ordained Stephen as Bishop of Anagni years earlier, but if Formosus was an illegitimate pope, as Stephen's supporters claimed, then every ordination he performed was invalid, including Stephen's. It was a theological catch-22. Stephen needed to prove Formosus was never really pope. Otherwise, Stephen himself might not be pope either. The solution? Put the dead man on trial and let him defend himself. Behind Stephen stood powerful Roman families, particularly the House of Spoleto. They had their own reasons for wanting Formosus destroyed, even in death. Formosus had spent his papacy trying to limit their influence and had invited outside forces into Italy to counter their power. Now they wanted revenge, and Stephen was their instrument. The trial wasn't just about one pope hating another. It was about power, legitimacy, and erasing a man so completely that it was as if he never existed. In January 897, Stephen gave the order: dig up Formosus. The tomb was opened at night. Workers descended into the crypt beneath St. Peter's Basilica with torches and shovels. 9 months had passed since Formosus was laid to rest. January in Rome is cold and damp, which slowed decomposition, but not enough. They pulled the body from its resting place. The flesh had begun to collapse, the face sunken and discolored. The expensive burial clothes were stained and rotting. But Stephen's orders were explicit. Dress him in full papal vestments. Make him look like a pope. Workers stripped away the burial shroud and forced the corpse into fresh robes. The papal pallium, a white woolen stole symbolizing authority, was draped over the shoulders. The body was rigid with rigor mortis that had come and gone, leaving the limbs in unnatural positions. They propped him upright as best they could. The corpse was carried through the Vatican corridors in the dead of night. Imagine the scene: torchlight flickering off marble walls, the shuffling of feet, the grotesque procession moving toward the papal throne room. When they arrived, Formosus was placed on a throne. A living deacon was positioned behind the corpse, assigned to speak for the dead pope. The stage was set. The synod convened with all the formality of a legitimate church council. Bishops and clergy filled the chamber, many terrified of Stephen, others genuinely believing they were doing God's work. Stephen VI sat on his throne, robes immaculate, eyes burning with purpose. Across from him, the corpse of Formosus slumped in papal vestments. Stephen didn't waste time. He rose and pointed at the body. "Why did you usurp the apostolic see?" The deacon behind Formosus's corpse said nothing. There was nothing to say. The charges were read aloud. Formosus was accused of violating church law by moving from the bishopric of Porto to the papacy. In the 9th century, canon law technically forbade bishops from transferring from one see to another. It was considered a form of ecclesiastical adultery, abandoning one bride for another. Formosus had done exactly that.
Formosus now sits where he once sat in life, waiting for his trial to begin. The council chamber fills slowly. Bishops enter, see the corpse on the throne, and freeze. Some cross themselves, others avert their eyes, but they all take their seats. When Pope Stephen VI commands your presence, you come. The smell is overwhelming. Even with incense burning in every corner, the stench of death permeates the chamber. Bishops hold perfumed cloths to their faces. Some breathe only through their mouths. Pope Stephen VI enters. He's dressed in full papal regalia, but his eyes are wild. This trial matters to him in ways that go beyond politics. The Spoleto family holds his leash, but there's genuine fury in his face. He looks at the corpse of his predecessor with pure hatred. A teenage deacon is brought forward. The boy is terrified. He's been chosen for the worst job in the Vatican, to stand beside the rotting corpse and speak on its behalf, to defend a dead man. Stephen begins. His voice echoes off marble walls. "Formosus, you stand accused of crimes against the Holy Church." The corpse says nothing. Its jaw hangs slack. A fly lands on its face. "First charge." Stephen's voice rises. "You moved from the bishopric of Porto to the papal throne. Canon law forbids this. You violated your sacred oath to your diocese." The teenage deacon stammers from a prepared text. "The Holy Father, Pope Formosus, believed the church needed—" "Silence!" Stephen cuts him off. He's not interested in defense. This isn't really a trial, it's a performance. "Second charge, you obtained the papacy through ambition and deceit." More stammering from the deacon. Stephen shouts over him, pacing before the throne, gesturing at the silent corpse. "Third charge, you crowned Arnulf of Carinthia as emperor while Lambert of Spoleto still lived. You betrayed your sacred oath. You invited invasion." The trial goes on for hours. Witnesses testify against a man who's been dead for 9 months. Documents are presented as evidence. Stephen screams questions at the corpse, demanding answers that never come. "Why did you do it? Why did you betray the emperor you yourself crowned? Speak, answer for your treachery." The corpse slumps slightly. A guard rushes forward to reposition it on the throne. The movement releases a fresh wave of decay smell. Several bishops leave the chamber, unable to continue. Stephen is relentless. He circles the throne, pointing at the body, his voice growing more unhinged with each accusation. This isn't just about politics anymore. He's lost himself in the madness of it. Finally, as afternoon light slants through the basilica windows, Stephen pronounces judgment. "Guilty on all charges. Guilty." The word hangs in the air like the smell of death. Stephen's eyes gleam with triumph. "Every act you performed as pope is hereby declared null and void. Every priest you ordained is stripped of holy orders. Every bishop you appointed is removed. Your entire papacy is erased." He pauses, looking at the dressed corpse on the throne. "But that's not enough. You don't deserve these sacred vestments." He nods to the guards. They approach the throne and grab the golden chasuble. With a sharp yank, they tear it from the corpse. Then the stole, then the mitre, pulled roughly from the skull. The white alb is stripped away last, leaving the decomposing body exposed. Formosus sits naked on the papal throne, gray flesh sagging from bones, the reality of death on full display. But Stephen isn't finished. "Bring the knife." A guard steps forward with a blade. He grabs the corpse's right hand, the blessing hand. With 3 quick cuts, he severs the 3 fingers used to make the sign of the cross. The thumb, index, and middle finger fall to the marble floor with small, wet sounds. The bishops in the chamber sit in stunned silence. Even in medieval Rome, where violence is common, this crosses a line. This is desecration of the dead. This is sacrilege. "Take it away," Stephen commands. Guards tie ropes around the mutilated corpse and drag it from the throne. The body bumps down the marble steps, leaving a trail of fluid.
In 897 AD, that line disappeared entirely, and for a few horrifying hours in a Roman basilica, the living put the dead on trial, and God himself seemed to respond with an earthquake. If this story left you speechless, hit that like button. Subscribe for more dark history that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about the past. Drop a comment. What historical event should I cover next? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.